Okay, everyone, we're going to get started on this Sawyer Elementary specific Return to Learn meeting. I want to thank everyone for coming on today. I'm continuing to see the participants increase, and we absolutely love to see that. We know that there are a lot of questions around, what does school look like here just in a couple weeks? And, we set up these meetings really with the intention of you want to hear from the building that your student is going to. And so if you looked at our timeline this week, we've done 8 of these. This is actually our last one this week. We've done 8 of these building specific meetings, and I can speak just for the previous ones that we've gone through. They have been really wonderful. There's a lot of information that the team here at Sawyer is going to present tonight, and hopefully answer many of the questions that you do have. As far as tonight goes, I know Principal Denise Colvin, she's and her team, they're going to present. There's going to be a lot of information, and then we're certainly going to have opportunities for question and answer as well. We're actually going to handle that in a couple different ways. One, if you look on the bottom of your Zoom window, there's a button down there that says Q&A. And so you can actually start plugging in some questions that you may have right now. I would encourage you to pause maybe a little bit, because I know that Denise and her team is going to go over a lot of information. And so your question actually might get answered in the presentation as well. But if you do have a question, their team there at Sawyer is going to be monitoring that Q&A, and we'll actually be responding to it throughout the night, including when the presentation is going on. And then once the presentation is done, we are going to have an opportunity to actually ask questions in person. And so the way that we're going to be able to do that is there's a button on the lower left-hand corner of the Zoom window. It says raise hand. And so once we get to that component of the night, then you can raise your hand. I will give you permission to ask your question, and we'll close out the night that way, just with a question and answer. I referenced our timeline earlier this week. So because we've had so many meetings, we've had to cap these at 1 hour and 10 minutes. I know that, we probably won't get to every question that is being asked, but I know just from experience that we're going to get through a lot of them. And so, but we are going to be looking at that for a time frame tonight. And before I kick it over to Denise, I know that they're going to be talking a lot about what's already in their Return to Learn plan. And so I wanted to provide you an opportunity and just show you how you can find that if you haven't done so already or haven't had a chance to look at it. So if you go to our website, ames.k12.ia.us, or you could just Google it, Ames Community School District, that will bring you here. Right here is our Return to Learn page, and we have a lot of really good information about Return to Learn, including our building specific plans. So I scroll down just a bit. If you click on the plan button, here's where we have all of our building specific plans, including Sawyer Elementary's. So it's right here. I do also want to point out that the slides that will be presented tonight will also be posted here right on this page, so you can reference them later if you need to. One other thing that I do want to show you here under timeline, here's where we've posted actually the links for all of our Zoom meetings. And so our last one here's Sawyer. You actually may have clicked on this join via Zoom to get onto this webinar, but you can see that all of the recordings from our previous ones are already linked here. So we're actually recording live onto YouTube right now. And once this meeting concludes, at least by tomorrow, that link will be right here for you to find. And so with that, I'm going to kick it over to Denise and her team at Sawyer Elementary.
All right. Well, thank you, Eric. My name is Denise Colvin, and I am the principal at Sawyer Elementary. This is my first year in Ames, and I'm really excited to be joining the Sawyer family. I've received an incredible welcome and have just been blown away by the dedication of our staff to ensure that we are able to provide a learning space where students feel safe, secure, and loved. And we know that this is incredibly important. Our students have experienced a lot of different things since they last walked through our doors, and we're mindful of their needs. And we hope that the information that we share tonight will help you to make a decision that is best for you and your family, especially if you are still unsure about what you'd like to do. We know that the school year will not be easy. We know that we are going to face a lot of challenges, and we know that we are going to have to be flexible. So when I begin my presentation, what you'll notice on every slide is that there is this hashtag challenge accepted. And that's really our motto at Sawyer this year. We are ready to take on whatever challenges come our way this year. And we hope that you'll be right there alongside us as we go on this journey together. So before I begin the presentation, I'd like to introduce some of our staff members who are here tonight to help respond to your questions. So Heather, we'll start with you, and if you could share your name and your role at Sawyer, that would be appreciated.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. We're so glad that you are here. My name is Heather Briggs, and I have been a second grade teacher for Sawyer for the last 6 years, I think. And now I'm really excited to be expanding my role and working as the learning lead at Sawyer this year. Is Angie on yet?
Let's go ahead and go to Jen.
Okay, Jen, go ahead. Thanks.
Hey, hi, I'm Jen Voigtlander, and I'm a success teacher at Sawyer, and I've been at Sawyer for 13 years.
Okay, thanks, Liz. Okay, we'll come back. Jessamy, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jessamy McKinney, and I am the behavior interventionist at Sawyer Elementary. I was also the behavior interventionist last year, but I was the integrated services teacher for 3 years before that. So nice to see you today.
Okay, Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah Huey Jones. This will be my second year at Sawyer as a special ed teacher.
And Tabitha.
I'm Tabitha Wu, and I am one of the 4th grade teachers here at Sawyer.
Molly.
Hi, I'm Molly Kaler, and I am a 3rd grade teacher this year. Last year I was 4th grade. So this is my second year at Sawyer.
And Anna. Okay. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. We do have a couple of people I know that were rushing to get here to join us, and I said, drive safe. We want you to get home safely, so you can join us when you're ready. At this point, I would like to go ahead and begin our presentation. So give me just a moment here, and I'll pull up our slides.
Denise, I will jump in. If there are any on the Sawyer team that I may have missed, if you could raise your hand, I will promote you. I see a couple first names that don't have a last name, so there may have been some that I missed. So if I did miss you, if you could raise your hand, then I will promote you.
Okay, so Eric, at this point, it is not allowing me to share my screen. It's kicking me over to Systems Preferences. Do you have thoughts about that? Or can you see part of my screen?
So I will say this might be the case. I just ran into this today. If you go to the Zoom preference, or you can select that to share screen. And I know I didn't use the right, I'm so sorry, my dog.
Right now we're looking at Timothy's screen that's on here.
Yeah. I apologize. I've not had this happen before in Zoom.
Denise, if you want to send me the presentation, I'm more than happy to share my screen and move slide by slide as you ask me to.
That would be awesome. Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. All right, I just sent it to you.
Okay, I will look for it.
And while they're setting that up, I could take a minute to answer one of the questions that I would have answered later. So I know there are a lot of questions around the first 4 weeks of school and not meeting the state proclamation guide. And so I wanted to address that right off the bat so that we can move forward and know that we are still in the process of working with the state to try and get that permission or to come in compliance or permission to be in compliance using that phased in model. And so know that we won't be extending the school year. We'll be looking for opportunities within the school year if we did not get that approval to make up the time that we would have missed. And so, for example, there are staff development days that we would be looking at working with the union to have those be student contact days rather than staff development days, and then some other creative solutions. So I just wanted to put that out there that we are still working with the state, but in the event that those that time missed didn't count, we would certainly be, we have a plan in place to be looking at that. So thank you. It looks like you're ready to go.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Hawkins. If you can go ahead and click to the next slide. And like I said, our motto this year is challenge accepted. So we've got to be flexible and roll with the challenges that we face. So thank you, Dr. Hawkins, for jumping right in. I appreciate that. So for all of you that are out there, I'd like to start just by inviting you to join the Sawyer PTO. Many people have already asked how they can help support Sawyer this year, and this is one way to get involved. And we would love to have you involved in this regardless if your kids are attending on site or remotely. The reason for that is because it's our hope that we're all going to come back together, and we want our community to stay strong and be able to move forward together as one. The first meeting is going to be held on Tuesday, September 15th at 6 p.m. And you can find additional information about our PTO on our PTO's Facebook page. So you can go to that by going to Facebook and searching for the Sawyer Elementary School PTO. Next, please. Go ahead, Dr. Hawkins. So we do have some important dates that we want you to keep in mind. The first being that August 21st is the deadline to request online learning, which is coming up quickly. It's tomorrow. Also, we wanted to remind you that August 31st through September 4th, we'll be having mini conferences with our families, and it's at our hope we will have rosters by that time. We know we've got about a week to make that happen, and we will do that so that you'll know who your teacher is and be able to meet with them and answer any additional questions you may have. And of course, our first day of school for all models will be September 8th. And again, I just wanted to remind you of our PTO meeting coming up on September 15th. So here's some important information, especially if you are going to select the hybrid option. And that is that our school hours have changed and they are now going to be 8:30 to 3:10 daily. Of course, as we get talking about the hybrid model, you'll notice there'll be some changes in the days that schools will be attending. But I know one question that several parents had is, will there still be an early dismissal on Wednesday once we move to a 50% hybrid model? And the answer to that question is no, we will not. So our hours will be 8:30 to 3:10 daily. So here are some of the options for school, our two options here. You have the opportunity to enroll your son or daughter in our remote campus. And this is where students will really engage in online learning only. The other option that you have, of course, is the phased hybrid. And we're going to be starting with having approximately 25% of students in each grade level or class attend school on an assigned day during the week. The other days that they're not on site, they will be engaged in learning virtually. And our goal, of course, is to increase to a 50% on site daily. So let's talk a little bit about the remote campus. I feel like that's where most of the questions I've been fielding from parents have come from. So let's start with that. So before September 8th, these are just a couple of things that I think would be helpful for you to do. And one of those would be to take a virtual tour of the learning platform, play around with it, ask questions, reach out to your child's teacher so that you can troubleshoot anything that you might encounter. Because as you can tell, as earlier in this presentation, technology sometimes has a mind of its own. So we want to make sure that you're able to be successful starting on day one. And you're probably thinking, well, what learning platform are you even going to use? And so for our kindergarten through second grade classrooms, we're still looking at using Seesaw. And then for third through fifth, Google Classroom as well. And we know that some of you are probably already familiar with these platforms as you utilized them last year. And this is another question that we've been asked a lot is, who will my child's teacher be? If you choose the remote campus option, your child is going to be assigned a teacher, but we cannot guarantee that that teacher is from Sawyer. But I can promise you, you'll have a teacher around the district, from around the district if they're not from Sawyer, and everyone is equally dedicated to ensuring that your child is successful. Another question is, if people have been wondering, will my child's teacher have to teach online or will they be in-person teaching as well, so that they'll be doing both. And if you choose that virtual option or the remote campus, your child's teacher will be designated to just teach online. And then, of course, there's the technology. Many people have asked, will my child be issued a Chromebook to use? And the answer to that is yes. We know that many of you already have a Chromebook at home because you still have them from the spring. And they will still be able to continue to use that. We have purchased chargers as well. And so you will be able to I guess if you didn't have a charger at home, which you probably already do, but if you were in need of something, we do have chargers that we've purchased as well. So you'll be able to continue to use that. And if you have technical problems, our first line of defense is going to be our teacher technology librarian, Melissa Gehring, who's new to Sawyer this year, and she'll be the first line of defense. If you run into something beyond that that requires additional assistance, then we'll go ahead and let her pass that on to the appropriate person. And then this is the big question, is what curriculum is going to be used in our virtual campus? And the most important thing here to note is that the curriculum is going to address our essential standards. So whether your child is learning here on site at Sawyer, or whether you choose that virtual campus, they are still going to be working towards the mastery of our essential standards. Lessons might be slightly different as we adapt to an online learning platform, because we know it just takes something different to be able to engage students in the learning. But the goal is for them to continue to work through that. So you're thinking, what curricular resources will actually be available? So students will still be utilizing reading and writing units of study. In kindergarten through third grade, they will still be working through foundations. Then they will also still engage in Envision Math. And we've got mystery science that they'll be using that are aligned with the NGSS, the Next Generation Science Standards, as well as teacher developed social studies lessons. So then let's talk a little bit about our phased hybrid model. The first thing I want to do is just show you again. I know if you've been able to attend any of the meetings, the board meetings at all, or if you were able to attend another community meeting, you've seen this structure, which basically outlines what it would look like. So your child would be assigned a specific day to come. So that would be a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday. And that's what they would do for a month. They would come specifically on that day and then work from home the remaining days of the week. After a month, it is our goal to have more students and to have them to come more often. So after a month, then we would combine those first two groups on Monday and Tuesday, and your child would come 2 days a week with a third day alternating. So every other Wednesday, they would also attend. So that's what's reflected here. So if you choose the phased hybrid model, this is what we are asking. Talk with your child about wearing a mask. It's going to be important for them to understand why we're requiring that of them. And we want them to understand just the health and safety benefits that that will bring to them. The other thing that we'd like for you to do is to just practice having them wear a mask for a period of time to build some stamina. We know that having a mask on all day, every day, for some kids is really going to be a challenge. So if you can practice that with them, that will help immensely. And then the other thing would be to just practice good hand washing techniques. Remind them to wash 20 seconds, get a good vigorous scrub, sing the ABCs or another song, whatever your favorite song is, right? And practice those good hand washing techniques. As far as the curriculum goes, I just want to mention here before we move on to the on-site logistics that the curriculum and the online learning piece is really going to be very similar to what I already discussed on the virtual campus. So I don't want to go back over that information. So instead, we'll go ahead and we'll focus on what those on-site logistics look like when your kids actually come to the building. So these are some things to do before you send your child to school. The first thing, go ahead, Dr. Hawkins, would be just to check with your child, right? Is your child fever-free? Do they have any other symptoms? Are they just not feeling well? Do they have a headache? Do they have a runny nose? Those kinds of things. Please check them just to see, are they feeling well? Then does your child have a face covering for the day? And I wouldn't just say maybe a face covering, but I would say maybe 2 or 3. I mean, I just keep thinking and imagining if a child sneezes and they've got their mask on, they might need a fresh mask. So if you have an extra that you could send with them, that would be great. And then does he or she have their charged Chromebook with them? Because that's going to be important. And also, do they have a water bottle to stay hydrated? Our water fountains will be shut off in the building, but we will have water bottle filling stations that will be accessible possible. Teachers also have sinks in their classrooms, so they'll be able to replenish and refill their water bottles throughout the day. And then if you can answer yes to those questions, then by all means, let's get to school. So when you come to school then, there are some procedures that we put in place to try to help keep students socially distant and be able to keep everyone safe and healthy. So first up, of course, is the big question: what time can I drop my kids off at school? So drop off time is really from 8:10 to 8:30. 8:30 is when the school day starts, and 8:10 is when the doors will open. At this point, students will not be let in early. We've got teachers who will be coming to make sure that we've got breakfast in place for them as they come into the school building and those kinds of things. So doors will open at 8:10. When your child arrives at school, we'd ask that they go ahead and they put their face covering on before they get out of the car. So as soon as they walk onto school property, they do need to have that on. If your child forgets his or her face covering, because let's face it, there are some mornings when things just don't go right, no matter how hard you try, and things get left behind, please just have them tell one of the staff members that's outside so that we can get a face covering for them so that they can engage in our activities for the day. And then, of course, what entrance will my child use? Well, we do still have bus riders, so they will use the bus entrance, which I believe is on the west side of the building. And then for everyone else, we're going to have you to continue to use that front loop in the front of the building. And from there, as you drive all the way through and park to let your child out, we've got our kindergartner and first graders who will be walking in by the side entrance by the gym. And then we'll have our second and third graders go through the main front door entrance. And then our fourth and fifth graders will go in the entrance by their classrooms, kind of where the bike racks are. So that will help us to keep students apart. As soon as the doors open at 8:10, your child will be able to come in, they'll be able to put their things away and report directly to their classroom. And that's where they will have breakfast available to them if they choose to eat. And then for the school day, there are some things that we're putting in place as well to help keep everyone safe. So one of those things, of course, is will my child be able to check out library books? That's a question that lots of people wanted to know. And yes, they will be able to use the online catalog. Our media specialists will be working with them on what does that look like? How do you do that to make sure that they're able to get books in their hands? And then books will, when they're returned, we will hold them for a minimum of 72 hours before we put them back into rotation. Lots of people have wondered, will my child still have fine arts classes? And the answer to that is yes. Where will that take place? It'll take place in your child's homeroom class, or it will take place outside when weather and plans permit. And we just want you to know that the gym will still be used for PE. Other questions that people have had is, will my child receive special services? So these would be students who maybe have an IEP or have some accommodations within a 504 plan, who are English learners and receive additional instruction in learning English. This could be our students in our ELP program who need extended learning opportunities, or it could be students who work with our success teachers to help them continue to improve in reading and math skills. So the answer to that question is yes, they will continue to meet with small groups of students. And then really for social distancing and face covering. So we've got all of these different spaces, and just so that we can be clear of what that looks like, you can see that face coverings are required in classrooms and during arrival and departure. And then you can note here that they're not required during lunch or recess. Students will have the opportunity to have a break from their masks at that time. Students will be provided with a lanyard, and when they're eating or when they are outside to play, they'll be able to tuck that down inside their shirt and then go on and play. You'll also notice that we'll be promoting social distancing in every area. And please note that I put an asterisk on that recess piece. I think it's going to be really important. Like, we are trying to create an environment that kids still come and want to be at school and that they will enjoy. And we know that kids will be kids and we do want them to play. And so we are going to do our best. We've bought games and activities that will help us to keep students from sharing the same space or invading each other's space again and again. But just know, kids will be kids, and that will be a hard place for us to manage and to guarantee that social distancing. So let's talk a little bit more about lunch and recess. Students will have the opportunity to choose his or her own lunch, which is really the same as it has been in the past. Probably the biggest difference is going to be that as they go through the lunch line this year, that their items are going to be prepackaged. So they'll be grabbing them and then taking them to the line. At the end of the line, those items will then be taken and placed into a bag. And then the students will take that bag to their designated eating place. So that's really going to be the difference. Students will actually be eating lunch in their classroom initially to begin with. And as we move to that 50% hybrid, we know that with their mask off, we are not going to probably be able to keep everyone at least 6 feet apart. And so we are going to push out into other spaces as well. So that could be an activity space that we have in our building, as well as the cafeteria. And will my child get to wash his or her hands before eating? Yes, absolutely. We will also make sure that they're washing their hands after they're eating. And it's our goal as well that when they come in from off of the playground, that they'll have the opportunity to wash their hands. And of course, at recess, yes, your child will be able to go out for recess. And this is kind of how it's going to work. I feel like we are so blessed at Sawyer because we have such a large playground that it makes it really easy for us to split the playground into 4 distinct areas for kids to play. And so we have basically 2 sets of playground equipment, and those 2 playgrounds will be separated. So we'll have a classroom on one of those, another classroom on the other playground. Then we have this green space. And so that green space is back towards the back of our playground where we've got some soccer fields, and we've ordered some other equipment like Frisbee. It's not called Frisbee golf, but disc golf, so that kids will be able to engage in that as well and have some activities to do in that green space. And then we've got our blacktop where kids will still be able to play basketball and jump rope and hopscotch and those kinds of things. And just know that we've purchased additional equipment so that kids won't have to share as much. So this is how it will work. One class is basically going to be allowed in each area at any given time. And we know that there are going to be kids on any given day that are like, but I don't want to play on the playground equipment. I want to be over there. I want to play on the blacktop. And so we will be rotating through those areas each day. So within the course of a week, when we get to at least a 50% hybrid, right? They'll have the opportunity to play on that equipment more. So, but we will be rotating through those areas. And then just know, like I said, students will be washing their hands after recess. And then here are a couple of questions just related to health and safety information that I want to touch on here. So one of the biggest questions that I think all of you have on your mind is, oh my goodness, what happens if my child has been exposed to COVID-19? You know, when will I be notified? And we will notify you as soon as we know that a student has tested positive for the virus, and we'll be contacting those families who have been exposed. We will not be able to give out information about who that person was. We need to maintain that for confidentiality, but we will be letting you know as soon as we know if a student has tested positive, and then we'll make that determination as to how we'll go about the quarantine process at that time. Another question that's come up a lot is basically this idea that I've got 2 children in different grade levels, but they're in the same school. If one of them has been exposed to COVID-19, do they both need to quarantine? And at this time, according to our current guidelines, the answer is no. Only the person who has had direct exposure to the virus needs to quarantine. Now, of course, if your child began to show symptoms, then we would want both students quarantined. But initially that would not be the case. Here's some additional information for you. I put just all of our resources here. So this is in the slide and you'll have access to that just so that if you are wanting to request online learning, you've got access to those. We do have a frequently asked questions document that is up and running. So there are questions there where you can have questions answered. We also have a survey where you can submit a question if you'd like, and then we'll add the responses to those questions to our FAQ. And then we also have a link to be able to have you request if you'd like to transition between learning models. Because again, we know that this year, it's a year of flexibility. And so if you choose the virtual campus and you really feel like that's not working for you, you do have the option to submit a request to transition back to a different learning model. So with that being said, what will you decide? Again, the decision deadline is Friday, August 21st, and I've got my contact information there if you have more questions, but I know now is the time for us to be able to turn things over to you and open up things and be able to answer some of your questions here live.
Great, Denise. Thank you so much. That was a lot of information and really well done. So thank you for that. And again, we will be posting these slides to our website and we'll have those up tomorrow. So at this point, we can start asking questions live. And as a reminder, the way that we can do that is in the lower left-hand corner, there is a button that says raise hand. And so if you do have a question, and we do encourage you to ask questions live, we would rather you ask the question than not. So you can start to do that. And I see one right there. So that's great. We're gonna get started. Amber, you can go ahead.
Hi there. My question is about, well, I have two children. They're in the same grade. They're twins. One is in special education, so she has an IEP, and the other does not. I'm curious about what the students who have an IEP, what their schedule is like. I may have missed it, and I apologize if I did, but are those students on the 1 day a week schedule too, or are they set to come for the 4-5 days a week?
Hannah, do you want to answer that?
Yeah. So there is a flow chart kind of that is guiding our decision making on that. There will be some students in special education who will qualify to come every day or to come one extra day a week. All special ed students are supposed to have an IEP meeting prior to the beginning of the school year so that we can make that determination, as well as we're going to be talking about, should we switch from hybrid to all online, exactly what the services would look like. So anyone who's in that situation who wants to know how many days a week their child would be at school, that can be determined at that meeting. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks so much.
Okay.
All right, we'll move on to Sarah. You can ask your question.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. I have a kindergartner and a third grader. And my question is, I know that you're trying to limit the amount of visitors into the classroom, but I'm wondering if, usually that first day or maybe even that first week, parents are allowed to walk children into their classroom. And I'm wondering what that will look like this year.
Well, thanks, Sarah, for that question. Unfortunately, this year, we will not be able to make that happen. And we know for those little ones that is tough. And sometimes I just remember dropping my own kids off. That was harder on me than it was on my kids. Sad to say, but so we will not, unfortunately, be able to allow you to do that. But I can tell you and assure you that we'll have plenty of staff members there to assist your child and to make sure that they get into the right place and that they feel safe and know where to get there. Know how to get there.
Would it be possible for siblings to walk the younger sibling to their classroom?
So what I would say at this point is that we would want them to be able to kind of make that transition on their own. I think we could have them make sure that they walked into the right door, and then for there we would introduce them to a staff member, especially those first couple of days, and make sure that we assigned a staff member to then take them into the building and to say, hey, this is where you go.
Thank you.
That's a great question. Nick, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having this. And our question is, so after the 6 weeks of the hybrid at 50%, is the plan to go to a full 100% then after that? Or I just kind of want to know like the plan after that if everything goes well. Thank you.
I can jump in and answer that if you'd like.
Sure.
So the district has metrics that we are using as part of a decision-making matrix. And so we will be monitoring that every day. So if we see 2 consecutive days that cause us to go into a more restrictive environment, we'll do that. But also if we see our cases really beginning to decline and not there's no spread in Story County. It looks like we can come back face to face. We absolutely will. Our goal is really to bring our students back. We want them in school. We want our teachers in school. And so we're going to do everything we can to try and take those mitigation steps that we need to take so that we can all be back in a safe environment. And I appreciate Dr. Hawkins putting that up on the screen. That is the decision-making matrix. And so if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And we also have Dr. Arnold on here as well.
Yeah, I know Denise did cover it in her presentation, but this does seem like a natural opportunity to see if Dr. Kathy Arnold, she is our emergency management coordinator. If Kathy, if you want to talk anything more about, if a student tests positive, again, I know Denise covered it really well in her presentation, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to see if you had anything to add.
Yeah, she did such a good job. I think, I could get some advice from her. But yes, so as much as we are going to be doing everything that we can to try to keep COVID-19 out of our buildings, if it does enter and we do get notification of a positive case, we will be consulting also with Story County Health Department for their guidance on how to handle the particular situation. But everything that Principal Colvin said is completely correct. We will be notifying and being communicating with those who have been exposed and making sure that as soon as we are able to tell that to you.
So we'll take an opportunity once you get to the Return to Learn segment of our website under resources. That is where I found the metrics. And I know that Dr. Arnold is also working on an FAQ related to this. And once that's ready to go, we will certainly communicate that out and post it to our website as well. Jennifer, you can go ahead and ask your question. Jennifer, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, hello. I'm somewhat reticent to ask this question because I feel like it's a pipe dream, but I just have to ask. I have an incoming kindergartner. I'm new to Ames, and she's been on the edge of her seat for so long. And I'm excited to embrace the hybrid model, but I am a little bit nervous about those undetected, those asymptomatic, pre-symptomatic, cases that we hear so much about. And, some estimates say maybe up to 40% of the cases are either asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic. And we read about Iowa State, for example, having a testing protocol for incoming students to try and catch some of those asymptomatic cases before they spread. Has the district in any way thought about, or is there any plan for just kind of a blanket testing at any point to try to catch those asymptomatic cases before an outbreak maybe affects an entire site, or are we just out of luck in that regard?
That is a great question. One difference with Iowa State and their decision was because they're having those students living on site. They tested all of their dorm residents. Currently, the CDC does not recommend for schools to do any type of blanket testing of students and staff, just because that only gives a snapshot for that one particular moment of where everyone is at, and can actually give a sense of false security if someone has that negative test. Although that is something, as we're all learning with this pandemic, things are fluid. So that might change in the future, but that's our current advice at this moment.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And just to close here, I really appreciate all of you. And I'm super impressed. Like I said, being new to Ames with an incoming kindergartner, I am very impressed with all of your diligence and this just top-notch communication. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Sarah, you can go ahead and ask your question.
This is Sarah's husband, if my voice sounds a little bit low for Sarah. So we have an incoming kindergartner as well, and I guess this is a general question though, and it's two-parter. So for the students who are fully online, and or the students when they're in their off days in the hybrid mode, can you talk a little bit about the format of the online delivery and how much time they'll be spending in front of a screen versus doing their own activities, and how things will be synchronized and all of that stuff? And I'd like to echo, thank you all very much for your work. This is amazing, and there are no right answers for a lot of this stuff.
Awesome. So I just want to make sure that I've got the right question. You're wondering within the hybrid model, when kids are at home learning, kind of what does that daily schedule look like? Would that be correct?
Correct. And then I guess the follow-on would be for students who are fully online. I guess are they following the same format or doing something totally different?
So at this point, the format for those that are in the remote campus, so that are fully online, the teachers of that individual classroom will have the opportunity to schedule the times for when they are going to have synchronous versus asynchronous learning opportunities. And so that will fluctuate from teacher to teacher, but they'll be setting up that schedule. What you could anticipate though is that students would have a lesson in each given subject area and that they would have time for some independent practice and those kinds of things. When it comes to the hybrid model, students will be on site one day and teachers will be working and teaching the remainder of the days while the students are at home learning virtually. And so they will be doing a lot of the work asynchronously. They will have some synchronous opportunities, especially like during that first month when teachers are not teaching on Wednesdays. We'll be able to provide some synchronous opportunities, especially on those Wednesdays. But then as we move into the 50% hybrid, some of those opportunities will diminish just because of the timing that will need to take place. So, excuse me, but you can anticipate, excuse me, that students will be able to engage in a variety of activities. So I'm going to let maybe one of the teachers finish responding to that if you have anything else you want to add.
That's not a COVID cough either. That's a been talking a lot cough.
Thank you for clarifying.
I know that one.
All right, I'm really appreciating the number of hands raised. We do have several more, and we do have time, so this is great. Jennifer, you can go ahead. You may have to unmute.
Sorry, I don't know if you were talking about me, but my question was answered.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, thank you.
That was on our director of communication. That was his fault, not yours, Jennifer.
Thanks, Superintendent Reisner.
Thank you.
Kenya, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, I have a fifth grader at Sawyer, and we're planning to start online, but I'm curious if we are considering returning to campus at some point, what's being done to make sure that the scope and sequence and kind of pacing of where remote campus students are with the in-person students, and will we be assigned like a Sawyer teacher that we would go back to if we chose to come back online, and how does that work?
Okay, so absolutely. One, your student rather, would be assigned a teacher if they chose to come back on to the campus if you choose to enroll in the hybrid model. So that would happen for sure. And then what our teachers will be doing is we're planning on working really closely together in our grade level teams with the teachers who are teaching online as well as those who are engaged in the hybrid model. So we're anticipating that teachers will have time to get together and to talk about the curriculum and work out how they're moving through the curriculum. It is our hope by doing that our classrooms will be pretty tightly aligned, whether they're on the remote campus or whether they're in class, so that when we have students transitioning between those models, that transition will be as smooth as possible. So we're going to be working very closely together to make sure that that happens.
I have one follow-up question. If our student receives IEP services or ELP services, but we're in the online campus, will we work with those teachers at Sawyer, or would it maybe be a ELP or special ed teacher from another building?
So Hannah, I'll let you address the special ed piece.
Oh, did you say Darcy? Because Darcy would be able to answer it better.
Either one.
I'm happy to answer. We cannot promise that teachers that are in the remote classroom will have a teacher from the building, whether they're in general ed or if they're in special ed. So after everybody's done choosing tomorrow, we will get together and we'll pair people up, but we can't say that it will be somebody from Sawyer.
Great, thanks, Darcy. Amber, go ahead.
Excuse me, I just had a little frog in my throat. I have a couple of questions. Will the mini conferences be virtual meetings? And do the parents get a chance to see where in the building their child's classroom is? Then my second/third question is, are there any different standards for the safety of the teachers? Are the teachers being tested, or is there a different protocol for making sure the teachers are healthy as well?
Okay.
Hello?
Yep, sorry. So I'll start with, I was trying to write down some of the things that you asked there. So I'm going to start with the teachers and kind of the safety standards. And at this time, we're not doing anything differently as far as the teachers go and requiring testing for them. Our teachers are being provided with face coverings, with face masks and shields, and will be required to wear them throughout the course of the day, except at times when they are themselves eating lunch. So we are not doing any additional standards at this point in time, but we are asking teachers just to be mindful about how they feel when they come to school. You know, if they don't feel well, if they got a runny nose or any of the other symptoms, you know, we're asking our teachers to check themselves as well. So that would be the first thing. And I'm going to tell you I didn't write fast enough. So what was your first question?
It's okay. Thank you for answering. My first question was about the mini conferences. So before or in the beginning of the school year, how will those be held? Will they be virtual, or will parents get the opportunity to see the classroom where their student/child will be?
So those meetings will be held virtually, and you'll have the opportunity, I think, to be able to talk with the teacher, and teachers will be in their classrooms. And so I don't know how many virtual tours that you've had done, but if that's something that you would like, just to be able to see the physical space, I am sure that our teachers would be willing to give you a quick virtual tour of that learning space.
Thanks for that. My question is mostly not what the classroom itself looks like, but more so where location in the building, like where in the building is the classroom. I don't know if first and second grade is in the same hallway. If it is, then my question is unnecessary, but.
Well, I can tell you that first and second grade are not in the same hallway. So we have a kindergarten first grade wing and a second and third grade wing, and then a fourth and fifth grade. So they would not be in the same hallway.
Okay, so I have no idea where the second and third grade wing is. I would just be curious to know where exactly that is.
So are you familiar coming into where our media center is at Sawyer, which is straight ahead from the main entrance?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you just go to the left, then there's another long hallway, just like in the kindergarten and first grade wing. We've got another long hallway that's the second and third grade wing. So you would go to the left and then take your immediate right, and your child's classroom would be there.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Sarah, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I had a couple questions that just came up as we were chatting. So what is the process for parents to notify the school of exposure? It was just mentioned that, you know, a parent would notify, but is that going to be a special form that we fill out? Are we just supposed to email or call the school? What's that process? And then my second question is about you mentioned Principal Colvin in the beginning to check out like the virtual platforms ahead of time and also these like virtual tours. So when would parents have access to check out these platforms ahead of September 8th?
So as far as the platforms go, and then maybe I'll let somebody else touch base just about the COVID and the process for that. But when it comes to those learning platforms, what maybe I'll do is send out some information. Google Classroom has some great things that are out there that can walk parents through and teachers through what that platform looks like and how to use it. And the same is true for Seesaw. There's some good, quick, short videos. So I can put together kind of a list of those and kick those out to parents so that you can check them out.
And then, Sarah, I can answer the part about how you notify the school. So if your child tests positive, I think that sometimes parents receive like an email or something from Test Iowa. So you would call the secretary, and then if you could forward that email to us, or if you receive some sort of documentation from the doctor's office, if you could maybe fax that to the school or email it to us. But start with calling the school and letting us know, and then we can start the process. But we need to have it verified also for public health. Or if public health calls us, then we would, call you, I think, and say, we heard from public health that your child was positive, and then just verify it with you that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. Thank you. I also had one more question about, so I know different families are kind of trying to form like different pods for those like online learning days. And is there a way to coordinate that with the school so that, all kids would be going together in that same pod on the same day and then doing like virtual learning together? I know that's would be like a nightmare to organize, but just kind of curious for those folks who are trying to organize those pods, what that could look like.
So I know that we've received this question quite a bit as well. And if people have specific requests, we've just really been asking them to email the building principals. We are going to do our best to honor as many of those requests as we can, but we cannot guarantee that we'll be able to honor each request. It is really a complex process for us to try to schedule kids across multiple days. We can guarantee that families will be together. So whether you have students at the elementary, middle school, or high school level, we are working really hard to make sure that those families attend on the same day. And outside of that, we just cannot guarantee it. But if you have a specific request, please send it my way.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ryan, you can go ahead.
Hey, good evening, guys. Sorry, I've been a little bit intermittent jumping in and off this thing, but so I apologize if somebody asked this and it's been already answered. But what was when you're doing the hybrid, my wife and I, we have a kindergarten. My son's going to be going in kindergarten. And what is the screen time? Like, what is the expectation there? Is it going to be 4 hours, 5 hours per day when, my little guy's expected to be on a computer, or has that been spoke of, or?
We didn't speak of that, but I can speak to that for you. So when we think about the lessons that kids will have to engage in, so we've got reading, we've got foundations at the lower level, or sort of word study at the older level. We've got writing, we've got math, science, and social studies. And what we're anticipating is that students would have about a 15-minute lesson that they would be able to watch. So when you're looking at that and you're going through that, you could probably expect about an hour and a half maybe of lesson time where they would have some direct instruction. And then students would also then have some independent practice time for each of those areas. So that is going to depend, like how long that takes is going to depend specifically like on your student and just their understanding of the concepts and your ability to be able to help them. So I think that gives you kind of a rough guideline of what you could expect, and just know that we recognize not everybody's going to be able to do that during the course of the day, right? And that kids will maybe need to be able to do a little bit at different times and then come back to it later and get it done.
Yeah, no, yeah, I appreciate that. That's awesome. And I guess my final question is, I'm sure there's many people in this situation where they come from, both parents are having to possibly go to work. I know my wife and I are kind of splitting the time that we're not able to do 100% virtual work from home. So there's going to be instances where, we might not be able to, and, it's horrible to have to admit, but we might not be able to be supervising that, the learning 100% of the time that they're doing the virtual thing. So I guess my question is somewhat based upon what is kind of the expectations for the kindergarten kids, meaning, there's putting them in front of the computer and trying to learn. And I know this is the best option, but I'm just kind of worried that, there's going to be times where it's going to be extremely difficult for them to maybe wanting to sit there and to do that. So I'm just kind of, I guess my ultimate question and concern is, fast forward a few months, if we're still in this virtual thing, is there going to be any risk that, kindergarten kids might not be moving on to grade one? Or maybe that's a silly question, but maybe I'm not clarifying completely. But
Well, I think that's a legitimate concern. Let me make sure that I get this right, but that you're really just worried about your students' maybe ability to continue to engage in the online learning for an extended period of time. And then I really wondered whether or not they would meet the standards enough to be able to move forward.
yeah, absolutely. Like, it's kindergarten kids are, my 5-year-old, he's a great kid, smart kid, but sometimes he can walk away from a bowl of ice cream sometimes, you know what I mean? It's just that's who they are. So,
I don't know what you mean about that because I'm
yeah.
not. So, no, but I understand what you're saying. And honestly, and that's really the point. We understand, and kids are all at different developmental stages and ages. And, that's the point to which we're really trying to keep those things short, those direct lessons, and engaging, because we know that if they were on the computer for an hour at a time, and we are not, encouraging that, but if they were on there for like an hour at a time, I know I struggle after an hour of staring at a screen sometimes. So we know we're going to try to work to keep those lessons short so that kids can get the lesson and the information and then get off of that sometimes and do some of the practice independently.
Sure.
And then come back to it. So I would just really say we would really need to chunk things. And as for you as parents, just make sure you're chunking things in small chunks for them. And if we really run into some problems or you have concerns, then that's something that we can address in the school year as those things arise.
All right, wonderful. Ayo Deji.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thanks everyone. I just want to start by appreciating everyone. I know this has been a very uphill task. I work on campus and I know how much we've worked to make sure that our students are safe. So I really deeply appreciate all your efforts. And one thing I want to find out is are there any expectations for the, I have a first grade son. I just want to know if they are really mandated to do their homework between the hours during the school hours if they are working, if they are the days they are not on campus. I just want, I guess my question is, are they allowed to do the work any time of the day when they are not in the school, within the school building?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We recognize that people's work schedules are all different. We understand that there are going to be some students that may be in a daycare setting that will not be able to have access to computer and technology and do the work during the course of the day. So whenever that work can be done during the course of the day, that is absolutely okay.
So I currently see, 3 more hands raised, and we're certainly going to get to them. I do just want to acknowledge the time. We do have about 10 minutes left, so certainly time for a few more questions. But I also want to give Principal Colvin an opportunity to wrap up towards the end as well. So we will continue on with a few more questions. Jessa, go ahead.
Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. One is in regarding to my son goes to Mr. Royer. He's been doing 3rd grade math with his sister for this past couple of months. Can you tell me if there are going to be exceptions or changes or additions to his regular math learning stuff for second grade, or have you guys talked about that?
Okay, so let me understand, you're talking about your student receives ELP services and you're concerned about just the work that he would be assigned because he's already shown that he's moved ahead. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all of those cases we'll look at an individual basis, and we'll definitely be talking with Mr. Royer. And if that is a concern for you, that's something we can definitely take a look at and discuss.
Okay.
How we'll meet
One of
the-
the okay. One of the other things, because I do have a high schooler, in their meeting on two days ago, they talked about sending home hotspots. Like for instance, my internet at home will not support all of us online. Will the hotspots be able to allow for all of that bandwidth to be going back and forth, for all the kids to be going on and off for those videos or whatever communications from teachers when they're at home?
So I can just speak from my personal use of a hotspot, and I've had no trouble from my home being able to access videos or doing any work online. It's actually, I was really surprised at how reliable the hotspot was and the amount of things that I was able to do. So I don't anticipate that that's going to be an issue. However, I would say if you run into problems with the hotspot and it's not working to allow you to do what you need to do, that you would definitely contact our technology department so we could look into it.
I guess
Principal
I
Cole.
guess my concern is when I have 3 students on.
Right,
Will it
Principal
support
Colvin,
that?
I'll hop in and just, while I don't know that we could guarantee, as I think you just addressed, whether or not it for sure will support all the bandwidth, because we of course don't know in any given week will teachers from different buildings be assigning lots of videos, lots of extended links and things like that. But I would say, ma'am, that the district did invest in purchasing higher bandwidth hotspots to try to address that issue. And so hopefully we, with investing in a little bit higher capacity hotspots, we'll be able to address that. I do appreciate Principal Colvin reaching out and saying, you know, if you experience problems, please let the building know so we can problem solve with you.
And then my one question, I guess I'm putting the cart before the horse, is what if we are in the winter time and they have like a early out because of weather? What will be the protocols for that? Because obviously, for instance, my kids will be bus riders, but if it's an early out, my mom's going to have to pick them up.
So typically anytime that we have an early dismissal or something because of weather, you know, we really try to make those calls, I think at a district level as soon as possible. And then we work really hard to get that information out right away so that parents have at least an hour or two of leeway to be able to make accommodations for transportation for their children if they do need to go home differently. So I would just say if that happens and you get that notification, to give us a call and let us know how you would prefer for your students to go home that day if they're not supposed to get on the bus.
All right, we will have time for a couple more questions. Heather, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Heather, and I have twins that will be 100% online to start the year off in 3rd grade. And so I just wanted to comment on what everyone else is saying with the connection with Mr. Royer. I think that'd be really important. If we could at all request to continue that, I would appreciate it. But my other piece is I'm processing through this, thinking about if the kids have teachers across the district, and at some point, maybe at the 6-week point, things are looking good and we want to come back to the school classroom. What is that transition? Are there potentially changing teachers? Or on the flip side, how are we keeping them connected to Sawyer when they're in the online setting if it's a different teacher? Are they going to be grouped together with other Sawyer online kiddos? Or if you could kind of explain that, I would appreciate it.
Sure, I know it's been our hope, and we've talked about this a little bit as a district, but it's our hope to kind of pair buildings together. That's what we're working to do, so that if, for instance, we have students that are going online, like your children, and they may not have a Sawyer teacher, but let's just say they might have a teacher that they're working with online at Fellows. And it's our goal to get those teachers together so that they can be talking and discussing, and again, being kind of on the same page. And so when we have those two buildings together, then of course we're looking at making sure, like we've got students from Sawyer and Fellows, that that teacher would be servicing. So it would be our hope that they would be engaged with other students already that attend Sawyer through those synchronous sessions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we will take 3 more questions because I know 3 were up. Jessa, go ahead.
I was already taken care of.
Excuse me, sorry. Heather, go ahead.
I just went, so I'm not sure how I got called on twice, but my questions are answered.
Tell you what, this is the 8th one this week. You can clearly tell I'm struggling.
I think I'm over here like, oh man.
I'll own it. I'm good. Christina, you are up.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much, everybody, for all of your incredibly thoughtful work in putting this together in this time of madness. I have a 5th grader who's going to be at Sawyer. We're going to be doing the all online learning. And I'm wondering if somebody could talk about how she may still be able to participate in the fine arts rotation and orchestra, which she started last year. Is that something that can still continue this year?
Yes, it is. So as far as fine arts go, they'll still be able to engage in the fine arts, and that will just be part of their classroom. They'll be able to get on and be able to engage in lessons virtually, of course. And when it comes to band and orchestra, and I know you just mentioned orchestra, they will also be able to still engage in that as well. And so those will be held virtually. And coming up here in the next couple of weeks, you'll be hearing from your child's teacher. They're looking to just be in contact with families who still have those school instruments to schedule return of instruments from last year, and to be able to just assess or repair anything from last year, and then prepare them to check out for this year's students. In addition, they'll be communicating about their online registration form to have you start thinking about what time would be a good time for them to engage in a lesson, so that they can still get some of that one-on-one face-to-face instruction. So they'll be reaching out to you about that as well. For those who are not already enrolled in orchestra or band, they will be sending out information virtually to gauge the interest of students and have them start thinking about what instruments it is that they would really like to play. So it is their hope that by the end of September, they would be able to distribute any school instruments and get the music that the students will be playing throughout the course of the year to students by the end of September, and then begin lessons right away at the beginning of October.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And Amanda, you get the privilege of asking our last question this evening.
Thank you. Thank you all for the countless hours you've invested in planning for students to return to school safely. My question is regarding some conversation that was happening in the Q&A about Chromebooks. Is there someone we should email at the district office if we need to get a hold of Chromebooks before the first day of school so the phones aren't ringing off the hooks?
So Dr. Reiser, I see you unmuted. Did you want to take that?
I do, sure. You can email, I don't know if Steven's on here. I'm looking real quick. He's not.
No, he wasn't able to be at this meeting. Sorry.
Okay, I will put his email in the chat, in the Q&A right now. He's our new director of technology, and he'd be happy to help you. So I'll put that in right now.
Okay, thank you very much.
You bet.
And I would just add, he did send me a quick note just about providing a device for a child, and we will have some in our building. So if that is a need that you have, if you give us a call, we can make arrangements to have that picked up from our building as well.
Okay, scratch my answer then. If you could just send an email to Principal Colvin, that would be great.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Sorry about that, Amanda.
All right, well, I think that's going to conclude our evening for this meeting. And so, Denise, I'm going to give you the honor to not only close this meeting, but actually all of our building meetings for this week. So I'm going to turn it over to you for the final.
Really quick, one quick thing. I just want to say that we couldn't have ended on a better note. This was just so well done. And so welcome to our new principal. And we are so excited. And this was just really well done. Thank you to the staff that helped out tonight.
Well, thanks, Dr. Reisner. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for coming out, for asking your questions. We really want you to be able to make a decision that is going to be best for you and your family. So if you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I am available and we'll be glad to answer your questions. Thanks again to the staff that came out tonight. I appreciate you so much and for answering all of the questions that kind of popped up in our Q&A. Thank you so much. You guys have a great night and we look forward to working with your kids.